Don't settle for bad socks. Get comfort and grip at an affordable price with Pure Grip Socks Pro. Choose from 18 different colors at puregripsocks.com.
What if I told you there was a pair of football boots that offered the feel of the OG Nike Magista Obra, but was more comfortable, low cut, and less expensive than all the most popular top-end models? Well, inside this box is exactly that. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to a pair of football boots that absolutely nobody saw coming, the New Balance Tekela V4 Pro Low. 9 months after the release of the mid-cut laceless model, we now have a low-cut variant which gives you the same knitted upper, but with a low-cut construction, an off-centered lacing system, and the same amazing sole plate and stud pattern. Also available in regular as well as wide fit variations for the same retail price of $215. And I feel like I've been saying this for well over a year now, but don't sleep on New Balance football boots, with this particular pair arguably being their best effort ever, and honestly, a pair of boots that, especially in today's current offerings from Nike, Adidas, and Puma, I think a lot of people would be really surprised at how much they like these compared to the more popular alternatives. So with that in mind, we're gonna go over all the details of the New Balance Tekela V4 Pro Lows in today's video, including how they fit and feel on feet, ultimately concluding how these stack up against the competition and whether or not you should be considering NB for your next pair of boots. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around, watch the entire video, and if you are interested in a pair for yourself, you can pick them up below their normal retail price by way of some exclusive SR4U coupon codes by checking out the first link down below. And as always, if you enjoy the brutally honest content on this channel, don't forget to drop a like on the video and make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already so you don't miss out on my reviews of all the latest football boots of 2023. Now, for those that are maybe unfamiliar with New Balance's current lineup, while this is technically a brand new variant, the Tekela V4 has been around for about 9 months now. It is a mid-cut laceless football boot with a full knitted upper, also retailing for $215, by the way, that I would argue is one of the best laceless boots currently on the market that most people don't even consider. What's great about these is the fit, is the upper, is the sole plate and stud pattern. However, the laceless aspect of the boot certainly isn't for everybody, especially if you're somebody that wants a little bit more lockdown and a little bit more tightness and just general adjustability. And that's where this new low-cut model comes into play and why it's so exciting, in that this laceless model is fantastic, but it could just use a little bit more lockdown and a little bit more responsiveness and arguably an even better fit. And that's exactly what we're getting here in this low-cut variation, with the entirety of the upper being made from a material that New Balance is calling Hypoknit. And it is very similar to a lot of the early Flyknit uppers in terms of just delivering on giving you that sock-like softness and just that little bit of padding while still being on the thinner side. I think what makes this interesting as a pair of football boots with laces is how the laces have actually been pushed to the medial side. So it kind of relates currently to something like the Nike Phantom Luna, but if we look back at past Nike models, the Magista series had lacing systems like this, as well as the CTR 360 series that came even before that. And a lot of people really like this setup, and it works very well on this model. It leaves you with this really clean surface to make contact with the ball here on the lateral side, and in general makes it feel as if the laces are completely out of the way while still giving you the lockdown and adjustability that you need from a lacing system in general. The material itself is as nice as any knitted upper currently on the market, incredibly pliable, pretty much no break-in time required. You're going to find some texturing on the surface in the form of this kind of ribbing on both the lateral and medial side, but ultimately it doesn't really feel all that noticeable on the ball. Very consistent in terms of thickness, not a lot of extra surface grip, but in general just super natural and very sock-like. This is exactly what you would want from something that is categorized as quote-unquote a sock boot and really nothing extra, which again is not a bad thing at all. You could argue that sock boots have kind of lost the plot in terms of giving you that sock-like sensation, but that is not the case with these. If I had to compare the feel of this upper to any boot currently on the market, it reminds me a lot of what you're gonna get on the Phantom GX, minus of course the grip on the surface. So if that added grip on the ball isn't necessarily your thing, you prefer something a little bit more traditional in terms of not being slippery, but not necessarily being sticky either, you're going to love the feel of this upper. Even though they did add a lacing system to a laceless design, they did maintain a one-piece construction with all of this area in black across the top of the foot being an elasticated knit material. It just feels as you would expect it to. And New Balance as a brand, while they're not necessarily the most popular in the world of football boots, they're a very capable footwear manufacturer with tons of very good technology. So again, quality of materials, despite not really having the reputation, is as good as any of the major brands, and that's because New Balance is in fact a very big brand. The low-cut construction feels very normal. I guess that's the best way to describe it. You can see it does have that kind of extended elasticated knit along the edges like so many low-cut football boots do these days, but that's not something that's super noticeable. You have an internal plastic heel counter, and the heel lining material has plenty of padding. It's made from this really soft microfiber, and in general just feels really comfortable because of the lacing system as well, especially when compared to the laceless variant of this football boot. The heel lockdown and general comfort, I would argue, is a step up, and overall one of the most comfortable knitted football boots currently on the market, if not the most comfortable, depending on the specific shape of your foot. Then the insole, fully removable. I also really like this aspect. It features their Infinigrip liner, which is this mesh-based material in terms of how it looks, but it has this really soft kind of silicone texture to it that does a nice job of actually gripping your socks and feeling like your feet are a little bit more secure inside of the football boot, with the insole itself being made from a single layer of this very lightweight black foam. When it comes to the sole plate and stud pattern, what you're going to find here on the Tekela, I would classify as being exceptionally unique. Not so much in the sole plate itself. It's structured through the heel and midfoot, and I would say relatively traditional in terms of how soft and flexible it is in the forefoot area, which I think works well with the extremely pliable and sock-like upper. But the stud pattern, you'll notice, features these little blades that go right to the edge of the sole plate on both the lateral and medial side. And while I'm not a big advocate of boots by position whatsoever, I think in a lot of ways it's nonsense, because you should be wearing the boots that fit you well and feel comfortable on your feet. Pick based on personal preference, because at the end of the day, the boots have no idea what position you're playing. However, as a pair of football boots specifically for a goalkeeper, having these studs on the edges of the sole plate when you're pushing off for a dive, that little bit of additional grip could legitimately be the difference between you making a save and slipping and having the ball go in the net. It's a really cool concept and actually allows for a very unique feel to the stud pattern, that you'll notice that the main studs, which are a little bit longer than the blades along the edges, are pretty much just standard conical studs. So you have that freedom to twist and pivot, but when you make those hard cuts on the edges of your foot, you get that little bit of extra bite from the blades that have been strategically positioned in between the normal studs, with the studs in the heel kind of being almost a square shape. They ultimately end up feeling quite round, but I really like this as a very well-rounded stud pattern for an outfield player. But again, for goalkeepers in particular, if you find that you constantly slip when on the edges of your feet, something like this definitely might be worth a try. Now, when it comes to weight, I think most people would probably anticipate the low-cut version being lighter than the mid-cut laceless variant, just based on there being likely less materials. At least that would be my assumption. But using a scale, we're gonna see what they weigh, both in the same size, 9.5 US. We'll start off with the laceless model, and you can see that they weigh in at a very lightweight 6.9 ounces, the equivalent of 195 grams. That is speed boot light. Change the scale back to ounces, and we'll throw on the low-cut version with laces, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.05 ounces, the equivalent of 200 grams, which is still very light, but technically 5 grams heavier than the laceless model. Not necessarily what I would expect, and not necessarily an amount of weight that you're really going to feel as a difference between these two. But all in all, whether you're going laceless or low cut with laces, the boots, like I said, are way lighter than I think most people would expect. On feet, like I mentioned at the start of the video, this football boot really reminds me of the full Flyknit OG Nike Magista Obra. The material that they use for the upper of this football boot is super pliable, soft against your foot, not overly padded, really no break-in time required, and I think they absolutely nailed the shape, paired up with this lacing system pushed slightly to the medial side, and the end result is just a pair of very high quality feeling football boots with really no unnecessary extras. I love the flexibility of the sole plate as well. The heel with the low cut design, I think they absolutely nailed. The lockdown and general fit is definitely better than what you're going to find from the laceless variant of the Tekela V4 Pro, although as a pair of laceless boots, I think those fit and feel exceptionally well, very underrated too. But overall, I really do prefer the way these feel, and they're just one of the more comfortable knitted upper football boots currently on the market. From a width perspective, like I mentioned, you can get these in regular as well as wide fit. This is the regular fit variation, and as I've said with most of New Balance's top-end football boots, I think most people will fit best in the regular fit variation. However, if you do typically find that you need a ton of extra width, the wide fit variation definitely would be the way to go. The one thing I will say about the shape of the Tekela is that it does taper in the toe box area, so that is something to be aware of. So if you're really wide through the toes, maybe not the best option, but it seems like so many football boots are trending in this overall shape, so I don't think there's anything abnormal happening here whatsoever. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and the length is perfect. So if you are looking to get a pair for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, to put it simply, the low-cut New Balance Tekela V4 Pro is as good as any top-end football boot currently on the market. The touch, fit, and comfort of the upper is great, especially if you're looking for something that has that sock-like sensation. The boots as a whole are just incredibly comfortable out of the box with realistically no break-in time required. I love the feel of the upper because of the positioning of the lacing system. They're as light as most top-end speed boots, and the Soleplate end stud pattern not only is just top-notch in terms of performance, it has some unique characteristics that you legitimately can't get from anything else. Not to mention, the $215 retail price is significantly less expensive than the more popular alternatives from Nike, Adidas, and Puma, and you can get them in regular as well as wide fit, making for a pair of football boots that are accessible to just about any foot type. I understand that New Balance doesn't necessarily have the appeal of a brand like Nike, Adidas, or Puma, but if you're buying your football boots based on objective performance and a quality and comfortable fit, then you really have no choice but to consider the Tekela V4 Pro, because they are as good, if not better, than most of the football boots currently on the market.